Hey everybody, welcome again to another exciting episode of The Quick Draw with me, Mike, your host, and my co-host John at Kemuri Hirioku. Did you finally change it?
No, but I'm going to. I forgot.
Yeah,
I was gonna do it today.
At not gay John.
No.
I still like the idea, and we should ask the people in the live chat what they think your new handle should be. I think we should do like a poll.
Oh, this should be interesting. I already had an idea, but whatever. Okay, let's see what they say. I am curious to see what they say.
Yes. So on that note, today is chat choice. So you guys get to pick the topic that we'll be talking about. We do have some thoughts on the topic of suicide and depression, and since that's been kind of the hot topic on Twitter this past week with Kate Spade. And what's the name of the other guy? Because I didn't know who he was. I know he's famous.
Anthony Bourdain.
Anthony Bourdain. You know, he's, from what everybody's saying about him, he seems like a really cool guy, or was a really cool guy. So,
like I said, he had a show. I'm looking it up now because I can't remember the name of the show. I watched it like once, but that's why I know the name. I don't know. I'll find it eventually. But yeah,
was he like a chef? He was like a famous chef or something? Because it seems like everything I hear about him has to do with like cooking.
It was like a travel show, yeah, that went looking like different places, cuisine and stuff like that. Or at least that was part of it.
Okay. Because at first I thought he was like a journalist or a columnist or something. So,
well, I mean, he was on headline news.
But yeah, anyway, so that's kind of been a hot topic. There's been some other stuff going around. So you guys, if you're in the chat, let us know what interests you. You can ask us questions. You can bring it up in the chat. I did write a thread, a couple of threads today. I've been busy on Twitter today. And to answer, this question keeps coming up, right? Since I mentioned that we were going to talk about suicide and depression, I was like, no, this is not going to be a heavier show than usual. This is a heavy topic, but we will try to keep it entertaining, and we'll try not to drive anyone to suicide tonight. Emphasis on try. I had somebody, I was like, tweeted it out, was promoting this show, and I actually had a friend ask me, like, this is probably not the right tweet to reply. I'd rather kill myself. I was like, I laughed. I thought it was hilarious.
I found it. So he was a chef, for the record, a chef, author, travel documentarian, and television personality. And the show I remembered was Parts Unknown. That's the show that I had heard of. There were other ones, but that was the one. So there it is.
Whose audio is not working, Catherine?
What?
Somebody's audio is not working.
What do you mean? Like, oh crap! Like, is it not? Who's not coming through? That's what we want to know.
I just asked the chat. I feel awkward talking if nobody can hear me. That would just be horrible and depressing on a show about depression.
There we go.
Sounds like Catherine's the one with the problem. So I'm so sorry to hear that. So I did write a couple of threads today. One of them was a feels thread. I kind of shared my own personal experience with depression and suicidal feelings. No, I don't need the suicide hotline, and no, I don't need a hug. This is like everyday life for me. I've been dealing with it since I was in like 3rd grade. So, but there were some interesting questions that came up, and I think this is an issue that we should talk about, especially with everybody worried about the end. What seems like an increase in suicide. I personally want to say, I think the culture has a lot to do with that. This was something I commented on our group account, @ornery_opinions. I think part of the problem is we talk about mental health. People talk about mental health crisis when they talk about, suicide. And I have kind of an aversion to that, because my thought process is, I hear the term mental health or mental health crisis, and I don't know about anyone else. I assume this is the case, though. I think most of us, when we hear mental health or mental health crisis, we think like psychotherapy and pills. When there's a mass shooting and people talk about, well, we need to deal with the mental health crisis, or when somebody commits suicide, well, we need to get people, ready access to mental health care. I'm like, what does that? I mean, what does that mean? Do we need to give everybody like Xanax? I mean, what's the? I think the big problem is, and this is what I commented on the thread on Twitter today, is we've kind of created this dichotomy between physical health and mental health, where even though they're related, right? Because your brain is a part of your body, so there is a physical component in it, right? But we treat physical health as operating on one set of principles that actually respect people's agency and autonomy to a certain extent, although the fat shaming thing is kind of taking away from that. The whole fat shaming culture is really pushing the whole, I'm not fat, I'm big boned, I'm festively plump.
Well, another thing to consider is the fact that I think we also live at a point where you're supposed to, I honestly think this is what happens when you live in a society where everyone believes that you're absolutely perfect no matter who you are. So when you are a certain way that isn't perfect and you don't feel good about it, you think, well, I should feel good about it, and yet I don't. Because not everything about you is perfect. Some things need improvement. That's the way everyone is. We all have things we can improve. And not always is everything about you perfect as is. Sometimes you do need to improve it. But when you feel bad about it, you're not supposed to feel bad about it because you're supposed to be fine. And again, it goes back to the fat thing where if you're overweight and people are like, you should lose weight, it's not because they're shaming you, it's just because they're trying to help you. But then they're like, well, no, right. I should be happy as I am.
But that's my point. It's like, so, we understand, right, that if you're overweight or if you have high blood pressure or whatever, right, that's something you can fix by changing your diet, by exercise, by developing good habits, right? And we understand, if you have a healthy view of your body, right, you understand there's going to be limitations as a result of genetics, hormones, age. Like, you're not it's not a one size fits all thing, right? But there's certain choices that you can make that put you on the right path to, a healthy lifestyle, right? To having a healthy body. When it comes to mental health, we remove all autonomy of the individual. It's like if you have a mental health problem, and I actually think this contributes to the stigma of mental health, honestly, because I think that's why people don't like to talk about mental health issues, or their depression or their anger or whatever it is that's affecting them, because we don't like to admit that we don't have control. Right? We don't, especially of our minds. Like that is something that I think terrifies. I know that terrifies me. Like my biggest fear is that as I get older, I get like dementia or lose my mind, because that's like my biggest asset. Like I would rather die than like need someone to wipe my ass.
No, I understand that one.
but I mean, I think this part of the stigma of mental health is this fear that we are admitting that we don't have control, right? And on the flip side of that are people that they give too much autonomy to mental health issues, right? These are the people that say, you just need to embrace faith, or you need to just adopt a positive mindset. I'm like,
On the other hand, there's a neurologist by the name of Dr. Caroline Leaf, and I listened to stuff she was saying because she did give the idea that, she was saying that essentially that mind and brain obviously are not the same thing. I think modern psychology has kind of seen that, but that your mind actually affects the structure of your brain. So therefore, how you think and your self-image can affect your physical brain's makeup in certain ways. And so she was saying that if you change how you think in kind of almost in an exercise sort of way, you can actually adjust your brain. Like your brain's chemistry and makeup can actually be adjusted by how you think. I don't know how
and there's a comment. There's a comment here that I kind of think ties into that. Strike Wolf says, he brings up pedophilia. Is that a mental health issue, or do we advocate public execution for evil? And I think that ties to it, because we as a society have drifted away from the concept of evil, right? We don't want to. We don't like to talk about evil. We don't like to talk about sin. Right? Because that has a judgment component or religious component that we kind of get icky about. And a lot of what we would call a sin 50 years ago, 100 years ago, or evil or bad, we now attribute to mental health, right?
Right.
Or emotional health or identity. But yeah, there's I think that's something that we should think about and consider, because we're talking about, you see a fat person, right? Someone who's morbidly obese. You say, okay, look, you need to change your diet, you need to change your activity levels, you need to exercise more, and that might hurt their feelings, but nobody thinks you're an asshole if you say that, right?
Right. Well,
I mean, depending how indelicate you are about, like, hey, fat ass, get off the couch. But if you even suggest that, hey, look, your mind and your brain operate on the same principles, like, right? Garbage in, garbage out. If you're polluting your mind with negative thoughts, if you're polluting your mind with bad ideas, false ideas, if you are constantly focusing on the negative in the world, like, that's going to have an impact on you. Like, that, there's no getting around that. Like, I can't believe that our minds are just completely rigid and set against outside influences. But that's kind of what the whole mental health mentality implies.
Well, because
is that it's set in stone. Either you're born sane, right, and nothing outside will impact you, or you have some kind of defect, right? And the only way to fix that defect is to pay ridiculous amounts of hourly dollars to a therapist, or take pills, which you don't want to do that. I've actually known people who were bipolar, or who had postpartum depression, and their doctors are like, yeah, you may need medication, but let's try these other things first. Let's change. And actually, diet and getting enough sleep are one of the first things they suggest. It's like, let's see if we can alter your mindset or the way you feel by changing certain behaviors. And then if that doesn't work, then let's look at medicating you. But the problem with medication is it doesn't just like fix the problem; it wipes the slate. It just like wipes you blank. So it's like carpet bombing your brain.
And I think also that one of the things I think we do in attributing a lot of things to mental health that may not be is, or rather that are, but we give this idea that if you have a mental health problem, you just have it, and you're sacrificing a lot of your autonomy. And one of the examples I can think of is this idea, of gender dysphoria, the idea that, well, you have to buy into what they say, because otherwise they're going to feel bad about themselves and they're going to want to commit suicide and things like that. And it's like, well, no, you can decide to not do that, because now that's not to say that, yes, gender dysphoria is a disorder, that affects your own conception of yourself. But if you give up your autonomy, if you resign yourself to the idea that I am not in control, I think that leads very quickly. I think there are some things you are in control of. Like, I have a niece who's autistic. She's high functioning, but she's autistic. But her mindset is one of, she may know that, but she has a very strong mindset of, I want to be independent. I want to do the best that I can do. And as a result, I think the reason why she stays so high functioning is precisely because she doesn't give in to the idea that, well, just because I'm autistic means that, I can't, that it drives my identity. She drives her own identity, even though, yes, she has a hurdle, but she drives it. And as a result, I think it helps her to be able to continue basically living as she does. She's young right now, but I think as she gets older, that mentality will serve her really well. And I think people who are told, well, it's just a problem you have, you can't really do anything about it. I mean, after a while, what choice is there but to think, well, if there's nothing I can do, this is just me forever. So what's the point of continuing to live?
Well, and that's something that I brought up in one of the threads I wrote today as well, is you can't control how you feel. I'm a big believer in that. Like, you cannot control how you feel. Your feelings are very much an integral part of the primitive brain, right? When you look at where anger comes from, when you look at where fear comes from, when you look at where depression, which, by the way, nobody talks about this, but depression is really anger. it's, you know, we hear the word depression, we think sadness. No, no, no. Depression is anger. And it may be something on the outside that makes you angry, and you direct your anger at that thing, but you're also directing your anger inward. Right. And then once that anger peters out, once you lose that energy and you exhaust yourself, then you're left with kind of that depression. That's what the depression is. It's that anger that's still there, but it's not the hot, passionate, I'm pissed off and I want to do something anger. It's more like the I'm burnt out, spent anger. Like I'm still angry at myself. I'm still angry at the world, but I don't have any energy anymore.
Right.
So I don't think you can control your feelings, but you touch on this, and I brought this up in the thread on Twitter. You can control your actions, right? You can decide, okay, yeah, I'm depressed. You know, I get depressed, or I get angry, right? But you know, I don't shoot up a school, right? I don't end my life. I don't pop pills. I don't do drugs. I don't smoke. I don't drink. You know, I don't engage in self-destructive behaviors. I take control of my actions, right? And I understand that, you know, taking control of my actions is not going to make these feelings go away, but it may help me feel better about myself because I am taking control. So we've got some questions about the 9/11 in Iran. Okay, have you heard anything about this one? Because I have not heard anything about Iran helping in 9/11. No, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Iran sucks.
I briefly saw a headline about that, but I did not read too far into it. I'm trying to see.
I'll segue. I will say this about Iran. So I have two opinions on this topic. One is about 9/11 and one is about Iran. I think our biggest mistake with the Iraq and Afghani war is I honestly think that we went to war with Iraq to send a message to Iran and to say, look, and also to avoid being seen as like the evil, you know, white crusaders. Like we didn't want this to be about Christians versus Muslims or Westerners versus Muslims. So we picked on the secular country that we know has funded terrorism in the past and did have a WMD program, in the hopes that everyone else would get the message. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm sure there's if that is true, there's other factors involved too. But I really think if you're going to pick between Iraq and Iran, we should have gone to war with Iran. And I honestly don't think we should have gone to war with either, unless this is true about Iran having some involvement in 9/11.
Yeah, I got some
which wouldn't surprise me at all. But I do think we should have bombed the shit out of Saudi Arabia's oil fields. That would have sent a powerful message. Hey, we don't care about your oil. You know, this isn't about oil because we just burned all your oil fields. No, this is about if you pay people to like kill us, we will fuck you over. End of story. So I would like to learn more about this. Thank you guys for bringing that to my attention because I will have it.
Yeah, I saw a headline. I didn't read. I'm looking at it now, and it looks like there was some. Okay, so some official in the Iranian government claims that they helped facilitate the hijackers getting here. But I'm not. Okay. It doesn't go too much deeper than that, as far as I can tell. So
if that's the extent of Iran's involvement, I don't know if that's something we want to go to war over. Maybe assassinate the official.
But yeah,
make assassinations great again, MAGA. That's the MAGA we need, right? Make assassinations great again.
That's all I got so far. I'll do more looking later, but I was going to say that so far that's what I see is that basically it looks like someone in their equivalent of their State Department basically cleared the way for them to get here. Like they may have had some red flags on their background that otherwise would have gotten them flagged and not be able to enter. They cleared that out of their records so that they could get here is what it sounds like. But that's all I can see is basically they just cleared the way, got them here. I'm guessing knowing what they would do, otherwise what would be the point? So that's all I got on that one so far.
I'll be honest. I don't have I don't have a lot of knowledge about um, like the Iran deal or anything. I know it was not good because they're state-sponsored terrorism, and we gave them a shit ton of money. But and yes, as Striker points out, their IEDs have killed a lot of our soldiers, or maimed a lot of our soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq. Um, which honestly, I don't know why we wouldn't be more hawkish with Iran. Like the left just loves to defend Iran, and I'm like, why? They suck.
Yeah, but I also think that the left has a general rule that anyone that's the enemy of the West is pretty much their friend. So, I mean, I would argue that's the reason for their whole obsession with Islam in the first place.
Speaking of, so Ben Rhodes seems to have gone full anti-Semite. That seems kind of funny.
Yeah.
We've gone from blaming the Russians for Trump winning the election to blaming the Jews.
What a shock!
That to me is bizarre.
I find that somewhat ironic, considering the fact that the same people who are like, we can't let Nazis speak because if they speak, people will become Nazis. Yet they're perfectly okay with, yeah, we're gonna blame Jews and the shifty Jews for this stuff, and no one's gonna do anything.
We're gonna blame Israel. Anti-Semitic conspiracy theories are always a great thing when they're from the left. Right. It's like,
but Nazism is what we should be worried about. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you know, what's more likely, to get people to believe that Jews are evil, or to just run around the street screaming about, you know, white power? I mean, come on, really? So
well, and that was we were going to have a guest tonight, but he had to cancel last minute. We're going to try to bring him on in the next couple of weeks. But the conservative black man, he used to be at Thomas is my uncle, now it's at Neville something. Because I do like his original ad. I don't know why he changed it. I'll have to ask him. But this was actually something I want to talk to him about, because I know he's conservative, but he doesn't have a lot of patience for any kind of racism, especially from the right, and he has a tendency to call it out. And I kind of want to have this conversation, like where do we cross? You know, when is it a line that's crossed? Because you and I, we use racial humor more often than not. Like, we joke around. I don't think it's like offensive. I mean, I'm sure there's probably some Nancy out there that's just like, that was so racist. I might have crossed the line with that last joke I told on last week's episode. but I mean, you know, it's just how much of this is actual race. So I think that's something that I find myself asking lately, is how much of the racism we see, especially like online, is actual racism, and how much is just people pushing the line.
Yeah,
you know, and seeing what they can either get away with, or seeing what they can say that just gets people like,
yeah, just pure trolling,
all offended, and all flooded. No!
Well, see, the thing is I think you can easily tell that by the kind of the general timbre of the country outside of the internet. I think most of it's trolling. I don't really believe that most of the racism you see online, I don't for one moment believe is genuine. I think very little. I won't say none of it, but like very little of it. Because I mean, like when you get to things like Stormfront, or you know, the you know, stuff like that, those are genuine racists. The ones who are just saying, you know, like I've seen people that want to do the whole, you know, compare the actual comparing black people to monkeys, not what Roseanne did. And you know, I think you're muted.
So I didn't actually see the thing that Roseanne said. I know it had something to do with the Planet of the Apes. It was a planet, and it had something to do with Valerie Jarrett. But what did she actually say that had people's panties in a bunch?
I don't remember what her exact words were, but the thing is that she compared Valerie Jarrett, again, someone that very few people were aware was black, because I didn't know that. I was like, I'm not even sure what she is, but Roseanne was saying, no, she compared her to a particular actress in Planet of the Apes, which she does look like, and so, which again,
hey, it's not racist. The black guy said it. Okay, I don't want anyone giving us any shit because I didn't say it. The black guy did. Okay.
I can't remember. I don't remember what the actress's name is, but the one in Planet of the Apes that played the one female ape, that Valerie Jarrett does look like her. So it's like, it's not that, oh, she's comparing black people to apes. First of all, I don't believe that Roseanne even was aware that Valerie Jarrett was black, because a lot of people.
Okay, I'm gonna admit I didn't know Valerie Jarrett was black.
I didn't know that.
I thought she was Iranian or Persian.
That's what I heard too.
Which, okay, I get, like, it's still kind of, it's a little bit touchy to compare a Middle Eastern or someone of Arab or Persian descent to, even though, you know, Persians are Aryan. I get that it's a sensitive thing because, you know, a lot of racial slurs that are used for black people are usually transferred to Arabs just by putting the word sand or dune in front of them.
Right.
So I get it would still be a sensitive thing, but yeah, I didn't know she was black. Like I totally thought she was Iranian or just a very tan white person.
But
like she does kind of look like a tan white person.
Have you seen Planet of the Apes though? Have you seen the
not
movie?
the originals? Not the originals.
No, no. This is the remake, the one that was done.
The reboot. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Remember the one, the first one?
Wait, the reboot with by Tim Burton.
The one with Mark Wahlberg, I think, was in it.
The Tim Burton one. Okay.
Yeah. So remember the one. Remember the main female. The main female one.
Yeah.
Okay. Valerie Jarrett looks like her. Okay. That's a fair comparison to me. She does.
Mark in the chat makes a very good point. She did hit the every branch of the ugly tree as she fell down from it. She is not an attractive woman. I will give you that.
Right. So I'm just saying that's what the comparison was, and it's an apt comparison. Valerie Jarrett does look like her. It had nothing to do with. It wasn't even comparing her to an ape per se. It was more comparing her to that specific one because she looks like her. And she does. It's a fair comparison. So, like I said, I don't see the race.
Again, I'm washing my hands of this. It's not me saying this. It is the black guy on the show absolutely saying this. So.
I'll find you the side by side, and you'll see what I mean. But
yeah, I mean, okay. So you know, I could see why people might be offended by it. It's a bit of a touchy thing, but like, come on. People are equating that to calling Ivanka Trump a cunt. Like, that's not cool.
Right. Yeah.
They're actually defending that. That's what I meant to say.
Not to mention basically of incest by saying she should seduce her own father to alter policy, which I thought was something incredibly stupid that she said. And it's just, but of course, Samantha Bee is not going to apologize, and no one's really going to expect her to. Not on the left.
Well, anyway. and Strike brings up a good point. It did cover up the whole her connection to the Muslim Brotherhood, which she does have connections to the Muslim Brotherhood. And
right, Valerie. Yeah, I had heard that for a long time.
I wonder if that's why they got offended. That they were more offended at the connection. Let's give Ornery Ambien and see if the rumors are true. What rumors?
Wait, what?
What rumors are there about me and Ambien? Like,
I don't know. What rumors are we talking about here? I don't know, but
I will deny them all unless they're true. In which case, I will neither confirm or deny.
So deny, but that's the problem. If you don't deny, then they'll know it's true because you're not denying.
Going back to the ape thing, so funny story. My wife, when she and I were dating, my wife is from South America, so you know, a bit of a cultural difference.
Yep.
And the woman that I was dating before her, I was engaged to, and she was half Dominican, which is kind of black, and half Puerto Rican. And she was my fiance before we broke up. So when my wife and I started dating, the ex was trying to like sabotage things and get back in with me. And my wife made a remark about how she looks like a certain relative of the primate species or genus. Is that a genus? Is that a genus? And I was upset. I was like, holy shit, you can't say that about someone who's black. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? And my wife didn't get it. She was just like, why are you so mad about it? She does. I'm just like.
Actually, her response is actually a good one, because honestly, that's the way I tend to respond is, okay, fine. So what? And I was like, what? Not because, here's the thing. When it comes to so-called racist comments, the problem I have is not so much that people think the comment is bad. It's that people act like the people, who I heard someone say the N-word and I broke down into tears because, oh my God, I can't believe you said, oh, for God's sake, grow a pair. Jesus. Look, okay, bad comment. Great. People make them all the time. Have you met the internet? So it's like, okay, if you're gonna break up that badly over something somebody said, you won't be able to function in life.
I have a hard time believing that the N-word becomes psychologically damaging based on based on who says it. Like, it's like you can listen to, if a black guy is just going N-word, 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 N-word in a song, right? And you're like, that's no big. I mean, I get there's a difference, right? I understand that there is a difference in intent and motive and the history and all that shit. I'm not saying that there isn't a difference. I'm saying you can't listen to the word from one person and be like, and then listen to the word from another person and be like, oh my God! Like,
and also claim that
how that works.
And also claim that the context doesn't matter.
We actually have people in the chat who don't know the association with apes and racism. That's kind of shocking.
I actually find that's a good sign. That's actually a good sign.
I know that is a good sign. I'm just surprised. Because I grew up in the South.
Yeah, it's like, because I hear it and I'm like, wow, you're right. We've come so far from a time where anybody cared about that or knew what it meant.
These are people that are older than us.
Yeah.
Some of them. Yeah, okay. Some of those of you that don't know, racists used to call blacks monkeys.
Well, because, the idea was that, since humans evolved from apes, that Africans were closer to the ape than
that blacks were less evolved than whites and they were subhuman. Like, that was the whole thing. It was a common racist trope.
Of course, ironically, they said the same thing about Eastern Europeans, too. That's actually rather funny, considering the fact that we talk today about who's considered white, but who's been considered white has actually changed over the last century. It used to be that Greeks were not. I don't even know why Greeks are considered white today.
They're kind of tan, I think.
Because Greeks aren't white. I mean, Polish people, Czech, Slavic people weren't considered white a century ago.
There's white. It's funny is there's white supremacists in Chile. Like, you can actually meet a Nazi who's like 5'3", brown, like dark eyes, brown skin. You're like, I don't even.
It's
like, who wants to tell him? Who wants to tell him?
Is he blind? Is it like the Dave Chappelle sketch?
No. Just very not self-aware. Like, he's just running around going Sieg Heil in Spanish, and you're just like,
yeah, but it's like the people in Asia who have this love for Hitler that we can't really understand why. Like, you ever seen
they were
that?
allies. At least Hitler had Asian allies. Like that, I can kind of get.
I guess. I mean, honestly, I'm not really sure. So I guess I am eating. I don't care. Anyway, I'm hungry. I need today, but it's just it's weird to me. Like, I see like countries where they have like these anime pictures of like Hitler with like the sparkling eyes and everything. I'm at a bit of a loss. Like, you do understand why the rest of the world hates him, right? You do get that. Just so we're clear.
Why the rest of the world hates who?
Well, why the rest of the world hates Hitler? Because you have like the Asian countries with the anime style pictures of Hitler with sparkling eyes and kind of smiling and looking kind of
Have you seen Hitalia?
A little bit of it, not much. But
I love that show.
I know the show. I will watch more of it.
I'm genuinely surprised by how racist that show is, and I'm laughing my ass off. Well, for those of you who don't, I'm assuming like you and I are the only two people here that actually watch it. It was on Netflix for a while.
I have to remember to download.
But it's a show called Hitalia, right? That's the name, Hitalia, the Axis Powers Hitalia. Or something like. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's spelled like it sounds. And it's these little cutesy. It's called chibi, right?
Yeah.
Chibi is an anime style. It's a Japanese
So kind of
style.
midgety, short, yeah.
Yeah, it makes him cute and midgety. And all the characters are anthropomorphic representations of the different countries.
Yep.
And like the
It's not all
Italians,
chibi,
like,
though.
Italy's like pasta.
And I love the fact that like my favorite one was, and it's so true. Let's just be honest. Like the one with the Germans, like we've invented this submarine, and then they go to Japan. It's like, can you make any improvements on this? And they're like, we already did. It's like, not only do we have like all these different colors, and they can be attached to keychains, and here is its final form, and it's a giant mech. And it was like,
yeah. And that's not even the most racist parts, but there are actually some like genuinely racist jokes in the cartoon, but it looks like a kid's cartoon.
See,
like
the irony
it absolutely looks like a kid's cartoon.
This is something Carlos Mencia said he did a stand-up routine right not long after 9/11, and I've always loved it. I've kept a video of it because it's really good, because he really gets into understanding. He said that the good thing about America is this is the most multi-ethnic country in the world, okay? Races need to be able to make fun of each other, okay? It's one thing when you intend harm, but it's another thing when you're just making a joke based on a stereotype, like when we say that Asians can't drive.
It's like that scene in Gran Torino,
right?
Where they're teaching the kid like how to swear,
right? And then when he says it, and then it's like, I can't believe he said that. It was like,
boy, is my ass tired.
And it's funny because it's true. Just the same way that the tension between men and women is released by being able to joke. Yes, guys do the old comedies about the guys complaining about their wives, but that's an old joke because it's funny, okay? It doesn't mean, oh, I hate women. Yeah, they're terrible. No, it's a joke, okay? The point is it eases the tension between men and women because we are different. Yes, we are. I know there are people out there who would find that a bigoted thing to say, but men and women are actually different, okay?
Well,
races can be different.
Look at the way that humor, like the way humor was used in the 60s and 70s to kind of combat racism. I always think of this SNL skit with Richard Pryor and Dan Aykroyd, where they're shouting racial slurs at each other. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that one. I was going to say.
Okay, so Richard Pryor and Dan Aykroyd are basically trading barbs back at each other, and it's. They're saying different slurs, and towards the end of it, Richard Pryor goes honky, and Dan Aykroyd, I can't remember what he says, but he says his racial slur, and then Richard Pryor, and this is after a while, so Richard Pryor's kind of run out of like insults for white people, so he goes honky honk, and then Dan Aykroyd just looks him dead in the eye. Like, and they're both straight faced during this whole thing. Like, they do not break character for a second.
That's
Dan Aykroyd just looks at him and goes, nigger. And Richard Pryor looks at him and he's thinking and he goes, dead honky. and it's funny. It's funny because you don't, first of all, you'd never expect someone to say that on primetime television. And second of all, like, it's just a reaction. It was funny. It's just this back and forth. And the fact that it doesn't obviously end up with them killing each other or Richard Pryor getting lynched. It's funny, like it was shocking, but it was funny. And then you kind of realize how silly the whole thing is, like this trading of racial barbs at each other. When I off-road in the chat had a funny story. So he hunted raccoons with the only black family in my small town growing up. One time at school, someone asked what I did that weekend. I said, coon hunted with the marks.
I knew that was coming. I was going to say, Susan said raccoons.
Well, it's okay. So when I was a missionary, apparently Utahns have a very different understanding of the word coon. So Utahns will call each other coon, and they mean it like goober or goofball. They're like, yeah, man, that kid is such a coon. I love that kid. God. And so one time they're talking about this Hispanic, this Argentinian guy. He was the companion the missionary companion that I replaced. And I guess this guy I only met him like in passing, so I didn't get to know him. But apparently he was just a really goofy kid, had a great sense of humor. His last name was Paredes, which literally means walls. So they'd call him in English, they'd call him Elder Walls. And like, yeah, I love Elder Walls. That kid was such a coon. And I was just like, and I'm from the South. I'm like,
they're like, what?
they're like, what? I'm like, do you know what that means? Like, you guys are from the South, aren't you? They're like, no. Well, there was one missionary from Texas, and he knew. He was like, because he kind of laughed, and he's like, I don't think you guys know what that means.
Like, you keep saying that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. but I like it. It's like Blazing Saddles. You ever watch that?
Oh, I love that movie.
I do too. I absolutely loved it because it does show how utterly silly racism is. Because it is. It's such a stupid idea.
Well, that's what I get racism is bad, and my wife and I were genuinely concerned about racism during the last election, just because of the things people said to my wife. But unless you're violent, right? Violence is the real issue here, right? If you're just a mouthy racist and you just say dumb shit, like, the left talks about it, like it's like the worst cardinal sin is to be racist. Like you can be a racist or a pedophile. And it's almost like it's a coin toss for them about which is worse. Like,
unless you're at Salon, in which case it's a no-brainer. But anyway, apparently, pedophiles aren't monsters, of course. But
Cinco de Mayo, that's hilarious, Catherine.
But the thing is, and again, going back to the Carlos Mencia thing, I absolutely love that stand-up. I really recommend anybody. It was on a Comedy Central Presents. It's from back not long after 9/11. And what he said during that whole thing, I think, is absolutely vital for people to understand, because there have been things I've heard about, when you're dealing with different groups of people, the way that they interact with each other is humor. They make fun of each other, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. We want to make fun of each other and be able, at the end of the day, to put arms around each other and laugh at each other's stereotypes.
Yeah, what's the alternative? What is the alternative? Like, when you come up to a stranger, right, who is the other to you, right? There is that initial human fear, right?
Right.
How do you respond to fear? You either convince yourself there's nothing to be afraid about. The primary way we do that is through humor. Or you get violent. You say, it's a threat. Kill it with fire. Kill it. Like, that's the alternative, guys. Like, it's violence or it's laughter. I choose to laugh. It's just silly.
And I choose when somebody, and like you said before also, because I remember I told you about the guy on Twitter. I think you muted him before we got to this point. But where he's saying, well, you can't let Nazis talk, because if they talk, like, people will just become Nazis. And it's like, yeah, really? Where are they? The fact is that Nazis, again, let's look at Charlottesville. How many people were there? About 1,000 from nationwide of a country of 350 million people. And that's all you could get is 1,000. That's it. Richard Spencer can barely draw a dozen people to hear his lectures live. You really think that someone like Richard Spencer is all that influential? He'd actually be less influential if you stopped trying to shut him up. Let him talk. His ideas are stupid. There was just
that's such a rational approach. I don't understand how people don't get that. It's like, yeah, he'll go away. Like, his views are so dumb. And he's such a beta bitch. Like, I would love, I honest to God, I would love to get in a ring with Richard Spencer. I'm not kidding. I would bitch slap him and smack him around and make him my little bitch.
Like in Power Rangers, did you just slap him? It's like, I know, weird, isn't it?
Exactly, that's exactly how I think. Did you just slap me? Yeah, weird, isn't it?
I didn't even punch him, just slap him.
I would just, and I, not out of malice or because he's a Nazi, but just because it would emasculate him so much to have his ass handed to him like that.
Right.
And I would never have to listen to him talk about real man, the white man. Just shut the fuck up, dude. You got your ass handed to you by a Mormon. Fuck you, bitch.
Right. I was gonna say, is that uncommon?
I remember there being Mormon fight clubs back in the day. So Grey Wolf 76, 99% of the jokes I make in real life are racist jokes. I do want to point out that Grey Wolf 76 is German. So
wait, is he? Or I thought that was
no, he's German.
Okay, yeah. That I may be thinking of the wrong Grey Wolf. That's okay.
That's a different Grey Wolf.
All right, no, I was thinking of a different one. Okay, but yeah, I was like, he was like, okay, but even
99% of the jokes I make are racist. Siegheim!
But
he's also a Jew though, so I don't know how that works out. That's just
well, there were plenty of German Jews. Actually, ironically, I was like, that actually was one of the things that got them targeted was the fact that Hitler was of the belief that the ethnicity of the person giving their patriotic show mattered more than whether they were patriotic, which is why German Jews were actually hated even more, because how dare you call yourself German? You're not really German because you're not ethnically German.
Yeah,
you know?
and Varric knows, he's like a little brother to me, so he knows I'm giving him shit.
Sure. It was just, well, again, how do we usually joke about Germans these days? So we tend to make a lot of Nazi jokes just because at this point it's just again we're like what 70 years removed from it. We can laugh about it now. Okay,
you know what? I think when you are guilty of mass murder on a nationwide scale, you don't get to forget about it, and you're like 2 or 3 generations removed from it. I think the starting point for that piece, like, okay, once everybody who was alive during that period has died, then we wait a few more generations.
Then we're good.
Then we stop making fun of Germans for being a bunch of fascists. Right. It might also help if they'd stop being fascists, like in their laws.
I was going to say the irony is that they've outlawed Nazism, yet they don't seem to. I mean, for what it's worth, the American left is no better. That they don't seem to understand that Nazism is one kind of fascism. It is not the only kind. We should know this by now because fascism came out of Italy. Okay, at least the name fascism. Yeah. Fascists are socialists.
That's the thing that really burns my ass. Is it's like they talk about fascism and socialism or fascism and communism as if they're like diametrically opposed. Yeah, and it's like, well, we can't be fascists because we're fighting fascists. I'm like, you can become the thing you hate. You do know that, right? Like
the people that Antifa attacks are fascists. How do we know? Because it says so right in their name. It's like, oh well, then I guess that tells us everything right there. But it's just also like, wait a second. Anti-fascists historically have been communists, so communists are pretty bad. Can we punch them too? Or how does that work? We can punch Nazis, but apparently not communists, even though they murdered like tens of millions of people.
We don't need to punch. We don't need, no. We're better than that. We are not going to punch communists because they're communists. We're going to give them helicopter rights. Yep. That's right, because we're better than that.
Much more sophisticated.
I want a final solution, bitch. I don't want none of this punching shit.
No, just throw them out. I was going to say it works well. Man, I bet Browning Machine would have loved this one.
Well, I know he got a hoot. If you go to ornery @ornery_opinions, I put out a tweet. It was a bit of the spoof of that song. I can't remember the name. It's like if I could walk 500 miles, and
I don't even know what the name of that song is.
If I could starve 100 million, then I would starve 100 more.
I was like, it'd be like Stalin.
And it does. I do end up rhyming with Holodomor, so that worked really well. So,
why did I do that? I was like, how did I?
Really dark humor.
Again,
I have a very macabre sense of humor, and part of that, going back to the whole depression thing, part of that stems from like I said, my own experience with depression and suicide is. And I found this quote by Robin Williams that I really liked, which is like, truly sad. I don't know. I haven't verified this quote. So I read it on the internet. So take it with a grain of salt, but it's still true.
No, it's all true.
Even if Robin Williams didn't actually say it, I'm going to pretend he did. But it was that the people who are the saddest or people that are the funniest or people that like to tell jokes or be humorous are often the saddest people because they know what it's like to be sad all the time, and they don't want anyone else to go through that. And that's kind of my view. Like, I like to use humor. I like to joke around because, that's the alternative. You're going to be poopy pants for the rest of your life. Like, let's have some fun. You know, we can laugh while well, actually, there's a really good, if you've ever read the Ender's Game series by Orson Scott Card, they're in the, I can't remember if it's Children of the Mind, which is the last book, or Xenocide, which is the second to last book. But these characters go to this Polynesian planet, and they're talking to this big Samoan guy, and he's laughing and he's joking around as they're like blaspheming his religion unwittingly. And they can't, they're like, why is this guy always laughing? Why is he always joking? He explains it's like, I'm laughing so I don't kill you. Because you're blaspheming my God. And I'm filled with a murderous rage right now. And the only way I can cope with that murderous rage is to either laugh or kill you. And I don't want to kill you because I know you don't mean to blaspheme my God. So I am going to be humorous, and you know, Orson Scott Card, who's an amazing writer, goes into the depth of, you know, the great detail about how at that moment the character can see the murderous rage in the Polynesian, in the Samoan guy's eyes, and like he almost shits his pants. But yeah, like you gotta laugh. Like what's
right?
What's the alternative?
What do you think, Chris? What do you think Christians do in America today? I mean, how often do people constantly make fun of? And I mean, in ways that are really bad. Like I've got friends online who they know so little about Christianity that their thing is they're using the Bible to discriminate. Well, in a sense, yes, because discriminate is not a dirty word, contrary to what we've been taught. But the thing is that yes, that's not a bad thing. It's that the only reason they think
make discrimination great again.
They think because I don't take Christianity seriously, no one should. So after all, if Christians think that being gay, say, is a sin, well, then that's just bad. Because you shouldn't think it's a sin. Well, that depends on what you think makes sense. If you believe Christianity, then you will think that because that's you know, if you take Christianity seriously, then you will tend to do that. Now, that doesn't mean you can't interact with gays or live around them and even be friends with them. It just means your opinion of homosexuality itself is not one that they might like. And hey, you don't have to like it. You know, again, that quote, I think, was it Pat Robertson or somebody said it, the one about that we keep thinking that love means I have to agree with everything you do. And it's like, no, I can not tolerate lots of things you do and still like you. I can still love you, even if I don't agree with everything you do. You know,
right. That's what tolerance is. That's really what tolerance does not mean I like you. Tolerance means I don't like you. I'm going to put up with you.
That's the literal meaning of the word. It's I put
exactly. Up with well, I'm actually glad you brought that up because that was something that I touched on in a thread, one of the threads I read about depression and suicide. Because look, I'm of the opinion here that part of the problem we're seeing these issues, right, is we have conditioned an entire generation or two or three of individuals to take pride not in merit, right? Not in actually accomplishing things, but in identity, right, and validation from the outside. And social media is a kind of a two-edged sword on this, because it's entirely based on validation. But at the same time, it does let you connect with people that can show you genuine love and support. So you know, there's a trade-off. But one of the comment that I made in the thread was that I honestly believe if you want to see a downtick in suicide and depression, you need to restore a society that believes in life, liberty, and property rights, and that values certain, you know, Christian virtues like honesty, compassion, and moral straightness. And I use that term specifically, and I put them in that order intentionally, because to me that's the order of importance. I think you should be honest first, compassionate second, and then worry about moral straightness afterwards. And the reason why is because a lot of people think it's easy to be a Christian or to have Christian views. You know, you just be a Christian and hate people. Like, no, that's not how it works, guys.
Right.
Like there's this balancing act, right, between standing up for what you believe in and saying, look, I think X, Y, and Z are sins, and I think society is better off if we're striving to remove these sins from society, right? But at the same time, I understand there's people that aren't going to. They like these sins. They're never going to get rid of them. So what do we do about these people, right? Do we cut them off? Do we kill them? Do we put them in jail? Like, what do we do, right? Do we try to force them to become what we think is the ideal society. And so, and because that has consequences too, you know, that can backfire. And so there's this balancing act that we don't even attempt to do. And because we don't do that balancing act, I think that contributes a bit to a lot of the social ills that we see, and the depression and anxiety, because you're not trying to accomplish anything, right?
Right.
A gay person who does something that's Nobel Prize worthy has contributed as much to society as a straight person who does the same thing, right? Like, nobody questions Alan Turing's contributions to society and technology because he was gay.
Right.
Right. So we don't talk about that. We don't talk about, hey, you know, it doesn't matter whether you're gay or straight. It doesn't matter whether you're black or white. You know, just be you. Be the best you that you can be, and go and do great things, and then you'll feel great about yourself. And you'll still have your ups and your downs, and you'll still feel depressed from time to time, right? But you'll be able to look back at what you've accomplished and say, you know what? I have value. I have worth. You know, I can keep moving forward. And you're going to get people like the Kate Spades and I can't remember them. Anthony, what's his name?
Bourdain. Anthony Bourdain.
Anthony Bourdain. Like, you're going to get those people that, yeah, they accomplished a lot and they still ended up killing themselves. I'm like, yeah, but those are rare. Those are the exception, not the rule, right? And the problem with these guys is they're so high profile, right? That when they die, we look at them and we say, oh, see, you know, there's a suicide epidemic. And that's true. Lots of people are killing themselves, but they're not killing themselves for the same reason these guys are.
Right.
You know, that these celebrities and these high profile, highly successful people are. But I think there are some ties to that. The hollowness, the lack of principles, the lack of a bedrock foundation of ideas. Right. And it's interesting because people talk about other countries that are less free than ours as being happier because of all this stuff's like, are they really happier? Because my understanding is the reason they're happier is because they're all hopped up on value. Give me some happy pills, I'll be happy.
And it pays to also understand, I know I'm not jumping track exactly here, but I'm just saying that it also pays to understand that and I say this for the groups nowadays that are kind of told that, oh, the world hates them. It's not hate. Okay, when we've now come to define hate as does not approve of everything you do. Okay, if I say, you know, because again, transgenders have a very high suicide rate, about 10 times I think the average for the rest of the population. But it's been shown that their suicidality has nothing to do with whether or not people accept them or whether or not they get surgery to switch genders or whatever. It's based on it because it's inborn. It's something inborn. And this is something that many people don't want to acknowledge. They don't want to acknowledge that if you have gender dysphoria, the dysphoria itself is the problem. It's not that other people won't accept it. It's not that they get bullied. It's none of that. It's the dysphoria is the problem. And we need to deal with that they are struggling, that they are having difficulty with their image, their self-image, and they need help in that way. But instead, we oversimplify it by saying, well, anybody who isn't just saying, oh, no, you're fine, just hates you. No, it's not hate. Actually, I would argue the people who recognize your dysphoria as a problem love you more than the people who say it isn't, you know?
Right, and that's something too, like, I think that ties to, you know, I mentioned honesty, compassion, and moral straightness. The honesty aspect of that and the compassion aspect of it, that's where you, like, how do you be, you know, being honest does not mean being an asshole.
No,
that was my biggest problem with the 2016 election. Is there was this massive trend of like, I'm just being real. I'm just telling it like it is. And it's like, no, you're being an asshole.
Right.
And you're not even being an educated asshole. You're being a dumbass who is hiding behind the virtue of honesty to mask your dumbassery as candor. Right. And it's like, no, you're being a shithead.
No, it's just speaking the truth, even if that truth doesn't want to be heard, even if people don't want to hear
it. But there's a way to do it. You have an obligation, and this is the former missionary in me talking. You have an obligation to make the truth palatable, right? That doesn't mean water down the message. That doesn't mean change the message or hide the truth. What that means is you tailor the truth so that the person that you're trying to get to apply it or the person you're trying to tell the truth to says, oh, yeah, you're right. I should apply that principle. Because if you're just telling people truth in a way that makes you feel better because I stood up for the truth, but they're not going to accept it because you're being a shithead. Like that's not going to that doesn't help them, right? And honestly, you're not saying it because you want to help them. Because if you really wanted to help them, you tell them the truth in a way that they would accept it, right? You're just doing it to make. You're just doing it to be to soothe your own ego, and make yourself feel better. Now, there's always going to be people that no matter how you tailor your words or watch what you say, are always going to be offended by the truth, and they're always going to resist it, no matter how kind and loving and straightforward you are. Fuck those people. There's nothing you can do to those people, but you shouldn't write off everybody who has like a certain viewpoint that they're just not receptive to the truth, because most people are. I think most people just need to have the truth told to them in a way that makes sense to them. When I speak in the language of somebody's understanding, I'm not being slick. I'm being clear. Right. So Strike Wolf says, you guys deserve a broader audience than what you're getting at. Aww. And I cannot help you with that. Actually, you can. You can share this. You can share the link with your friends and family. You can tell them to subscribe. You can follow us on Twitter at ornery_opinions. You can follow at Kamui Hideyoku. We actually do appreciate your guys' love and support. Yeah, he's going to change it eventually, but in the meantime, just follow that at Kamui Hideyoku. If you follow at ornery_opinions, I will make sure that any changes made to John's tag are broadcast. So, wow, has it been an hour already?
Yeah, I know, right? It didn't feel like it.
It's like one of our fastest episodes.
To me, they all feel pretty short. I was going to say, I feel at the end like, oh no, there wasn't enough time. There was so much more to say.
Yeah. Well, so next week, by the way, guys, there is no show next week because I'm going to be at Comic-Con. I'm also going to be hanging out with one of our Twitter followers who's close to us. So me and the wife will be hanging out. So sorry, but we will be back the week after that. So, and I'll still be on Twitter. So John and I will still be on Twitter, causing trouble for the libs, owning the libs to own the libs.
Except again, I avoid calling leftists liberals because I'm very technical like that. They're not liberal at all.
but absolutely, yes, you can help us get a broader audience. We would love to have a broader audience. We would love to have more comments, more views. If you've got left-wing friends or liberal friends that you like to argue with that maybe aren't following us, send them our way. Tell them to follow at ornery_opinions. Tell them to subscribe to our channel. And tell them to tune in Saturdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, because we would love to trigger the libs. And
tell them to go into the live chat, from time to time.
Tell them to go into the live chat and give a shit. We don't care. we had a liberal on. We actually had a wonderful conversation with a liberal. Was it 3 weeks ago? 2-3 weeks ago?
I think it was 2. Feels like 2.
Yeah. Go back. Go back a few episodes. It's titled "Starting the Conversation." It's with Anafi Wahed, wonderful young woman, very bright. Just very talented. I loved having her on the show. She was actually a former Hillary campaign staffer.
Yep. And her website's actually really good. The Flip Side, which I've actually
been looking at from
time to time. Yep.
.io.
Yeah, and it's good.
Yes.
It's a good site.
We would love to have more conversations like we had with her. We'll probably have her back, as well as any other liberals you guys would like us to see us discuss with, or maybe debate. Maybe we should start having debates. So keep an eye out. John and I are also talking about doing some additional content. So I'm not going to go into specifics just yet because I haven't worked out the details. But my wife and I have been talking about some things that we can start adding. So keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye on our Twitter. We'll fill you in the details. And you guys, thank you again so much for your support. Thanks for contributing to the live chat, giving some stuff to talk about. And you guys have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you not next week, but the week after that. Have a good night, guys.
Yeah.